Hi, what is B2B marketing? Now, if you think the answer is really obvious and even too simple to discuss, why does everybody get it so wrong? Let me show you a couple of articles that try to answer that question, and then I'm going to give you a very simple definition of what B2B marketing is. I looked at Google rather than academia because that's where 99% of people who want to find an answer will start. And here's my take. What is B2B marketing? B2B marketing is the process of planning and executing strategies and campaigns that position your brand in the chosen category or categories with the businesses most likely to buy, and then create demand for a well-aligned sales force. To do that, you need to agree with sales what problem you're best equipped to solve. You need to agree the target market, how you're going to solve that problem, agree the velocity, then the campaigns and tactics that will move buyers through your funnel at the required rate, and then you need to measure what's actually happening and then optimize your processes as necessary. Let me show you what I found on Google, and then I'm going to come back and explain that answer more fully, but also I'm going to simplify it even further. Well, I began with where most people would begin looking for an answer. What is B2B marketing? I typed it into Google. I'll skip past the ads. I'll start with this position 0 offering. I will include that. This next one from Marketing Schools looks relevant. So does this one from study.com. Not so much what I'm after. This looks relevant. I'm going to include that in the review. And of course, Wikipedia. The first missive is from study.com. And they talk about marketing of products to businesses or other organisations for use in the production of goods, or for general business operations, or for resale. Now, I actually don't agree with that. I want to quickly take issue with that. If the end consumer of your product or service is a consumer, then you're in B2C. If the end consumer is a business, then you're in B2B. Who the intermediary is doesn't suddenly make them B2B. That is, if you're selling clothes through a retailer, and you're the manufacturer, you're not in the B2B business, you're in the B2C business, 100%. So I actually disagree with that, and there are no real conclusions here worth noting. Anyhow, so we're going to quickly skip to the next, which is from B2B International. Now, they argue that B2B is mostly derivative. That is, it's the start of the consumer supply chain. And again, I just plain disagree with that. However, they've gone on to list some really useful points. Now, rather than scroll through the whole article, let me quickly give you the 10 points that they make. Complex decision making, buyers are more rational, products are more complex. There's limited and highly concentrated number of buying units, meaning your very big customers represent maybe a significant proportion of your market. Fewer behavioural and needs-based segments. Personal relationships are important. Buyers are longer term, mainly. Markets drive innovation less. Now, I disagree with that because that point is made from this starting point that B2B is derivative to consumer, and I just fundamentally disagree with that. I therefore disagree that innovation is less prevalent in B2B. They rely less on packaging, and sub-brands are less effective. Now, I agree with most of those points except the ones that I took issue with. Good contribution, and I'll link up to that in the show notes. Next, from marketingschools.org. And there's a couple of points I want to bring out in particular. They argue that business-to-business marketing involves the sale of one company's product or service to another company. I think that's certainly true. Now, the points I want to make are, how big is it? And this is down here. Basically, the net conclusion is that B2B is as big or perhaps bigger than consumer marketing. Now, frankly, that's kind of all I got from it. That's not to criticise the article. It's not written for me. It's written for students trying to find marketing schools. And next one is actually a repeat of the very first article that we found, just listed somewhere separately on the Google ranking page. So let's move on to our next article. Now, this is from The Balance. Understanding the differences between B2B and B2C marketing. There are a couple of excellent quotes in here. When you market to B2B, you'll realise that businesses work hard to streamline the buying process in order to save time and money. Now think about that. Think about the buying process, not just the selling process. This often explains why a B2B purchase is based more on logic and why a consumer's purchase is based more on emotion. Another quote, the easiest way to explain this is that a business-to-business transaction often takes more consideration and more people to be involved. Again, both great, but then she goes on to draw some wrong conclusions. Like, when you're marketing to B2B, you want to focus on the logic of the product. You do this by focusing on features of the product. Really? We've spent the last 5 decades trying to teach salespeople and marketers to stop talking about the product and start talking about their buyers and their business problems. So I disagree, and I'm going to move on. Finally, Wikipedia. Now, despite my fervent love of Wikipedia, this is a pretty light contribution, but the best from it is this quote. B2B is often contrasted against business to consumer, or B2C. In B2B commerce, it is often the case that the parties to the relationship have comparable negotiating power. Now it goes on, and then it talks about in B2C, where there are economic implications of information asymmetry. In English, often the seller knows more than the buyer. In B2C, not in high volume or high value transactions, but certainly in most transactions. Whereas in B2B, that's often not the case. The B2B buyer often knows at least as much and sometimes even more than the seller. Big decisions get big focus. Think as a consumer first. So if you're buying a house compared to buying a shirt, when you're buying a house, you're going to spend a lot of time researching it, and the seller is likewise going to spend a lot of time because the sale is large, the commissions are large, it's worth it for them, it's worth it for you. You both spend a lot of time on that sale. When you're buying a shirt, it's not such a big deal for either of you. But for the brand that's selling the shirt, they're going to sell thousands or maybe tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of this shirt. So they're going to spend a large amount of time on the marketing, not on the selling, and you're not going to spend a huge amount of time on the buying. They are quite different purchases, and therefore both the buyer and the seller behave accordingly. Think about it like this. Big purchases, big sales, and volume sales all justify effort. So now think about that from a B2B perspective, and the same basic logic holds. Big sales and big purchases, but also volume sales, and now we can add to that volume purchases, meaning a company might be buying a small item, but if they're going to buy thousands or hundreds of thousands of them, they'll give it the required focus. Both the buying and the selling, big decisions get big focus. Now, we certainly have salespeople involved in consumer sales, but it's very rarely the case in B2B that we don't have salespeople involved. And frankly, very involved. And because they're very involved, marketing actually has a job not just to do the marketing, but actually to help the sales force get ready to do their job. And of course, demand generation. We can't assume that people are going to walk in the door simply because we have a high street presence. In B2B, we actually need to position in the category that we want to serve and create demand within that category. So what is B2B marketing? B2B marketing is the process of planning and executing strategies and campaigns that position your brand in the chosen categories with the businesses most likely to buy, and that creates demand for a well-aligned sales force. To do that, we need to agree with sales what problem you're best equipped to solve, and of course we need to agree with the target market. That's typically those buyers who are most affected by the problem. We need to agree the solution, which is pretty much whatever it takes to fully solve the problem. Agree the velocity, and think about the backward math. How many deals do you need from how many proposals, from how many, and I'm stopping there because I could keep going all the way up to names, basically all the way back up the funnel. Agree the campaigns and tactics that will move buyers through your funnel at that rate, and then measure what's actually happening so that we can optimize the processes as necessary. So the best way to agree all of those things with sales, and frankly customer service if you need it, is in a funnel plan. Now if you have a funnel plan, you know what I mean. If you don't, you can get a free one at funnelplan.com. Go there now. Go to funnelplan.com, get yourself a free funnel plan, and get together with your sales counterparts and map out all of those answers. The problem that you're solving all the way through to the tactics you're going to use to bring that problem to the surface for your market. I hope you got a lot of value out of today's show. I had a lot of fun putting it together for you. Lots more lined up for next week. And until then, may your funnel be full and always flowing. Our thanks this week to our 5 contributors. Study.com for What is B2B Marketing, definitions and examples. Paul Haig, Laura Lake, Marketing Schools and Wikipedia. To Rihanna Busler for production. My name's Hugh McFarlane and it's been my absolute pleasure to have scripted and presented this week's show.